And we'll get those slides up. Can everybody see my screen okay? Yes, great. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so we're going to get started. Hello and welcome everybody to our Food Sources of FODMAPs webinar with Intoleran today. So we're doing this in honor of IBS Awareness Month, and today we'll be discussing the different types of foods that are associated with FODMAPs and also food chemical sensitivities a little bit later. So we'll discuss different ways to manage your symptoms to do with those topics as well. So we're going to ask that you just keep all of your questions till the end so that we can discuss them in greater detail at the very end. Perfect. Okay, so we'll get started. Just to introduce ourselves. So my name is Lisa. I have a Bachelor in Nutrition Science, and I'm also currently studying my Master's in Dietetics, but I am a nutritionist at FodShop. So for those of you who don't know what FodShop is, we are an online store as well as a store located in Cheltenham in Melbourne. And we basically provide different types of groceries and supplements that can help with IBS and the low FODMAP diet. I'll quickly pass on to Mara now, who's going to tell us a little bit about herself as well.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good to have you here. My name is Mara, and I am a dietitian at Intoleran, a company based in the Netherlands, but we sell worldwide. And today I'm going to tell you a bit more about food intolerances and how you can relieve the problems of FODMAP-related food intolerances with digestive enzymes.
Thank you for that. Okay, so starting our presentation, we're just going to break down what FODMAPs are. So it's an acronym for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. So that can be a little bit of a mouthful, but I'm going to get into a little bit more detail on exactly what those things mean in a second. So for the fermentable part of the acronym stands for the process in which the gut bacteria ferment undigested FODMAPs, and this pulls more water into the gut and it can produce gas. So this can cause things like bloating and distension, and it affects how your muscles contract in the gut. So whilst people without IBS can eat high FODMAP foods without these concerns, those with IBS do have gastrointestinal symptoms, which can include diarrhea, constipation, and also abdominal pain, and also that gas and bloating that I just discussed. So these are some examples of some low and high FODMAP foods. I'm going to go into these in a little bit more detail and what these have to do with the acronym itself. But just for now, I wanted to bring your attention to the Monash University FODMAP app. It's a really great app because even with some of the low FODMAP foods, they can sometimes be high FODMAP depending on the quantity that you're eating. So each food is designed by quantity in terms of how much each of those FODMAPs are in it. So basically the app will give you a traffic light system to make it really easy to understand. So any foods that are labeled with the red traffic light are foods high in FODMAP, yellow is mid in FODMAP, and then green is okay to eat by serving size. So it's a good idea to check things like this app, which you can just get on the App Store on your phone, just to make sure that you're eating the foods in the correct quantities. Otherwise, you may still experience some of those symptoms that we discussed before. So our first part of the acronym is the oligosaccharides. Those are your fructans and your galacto-oligosaccharides, which we like to use a little acronym there is GOS because it's quite a big word. So fructans include things like wheat, rye, onion, and garlic. And then with your GOS, you've got the legumes and the pulses. So with oligosaccharides, they are poorly absorbed by the gut, and this can trigger your gastrointestinal symptoms like gas and bloating, which a lot of people suffer with when they eat these foods. The next one is the disaccharides. So a disaccharide is a carbohydrate, and it's made up of two sugars known as monosaccharides, which I will get into in a second. Basically, the main one, which we're probably all familiar with, is lactose. So that's in your dairy products like milk, soft cheeses, and yogurts. So lactose intolerance is usually caused by the lack of the lactase enzyme in our bodies. And that's the enzyme that is responsible for breaking down lactose when ingested. So yeah, that's what can cause our lactose intolerance. Next, we have the monosaccharides, which in turn can also be fructose and glucose, and they're known as our simple sugars. So when fructose is ingested, it's only optimally absorbed when also consumed with glucose at the same time. So when we have fructose malabsorption, these can be with things like apples, honey, and also high fructose corn syrup, which is in a lot of our processed foods these days. It's usually put in without the manufacturers really advertising it. It is in the ingredients labels that you can have a look at, but yeah, sometimes it's hidden in those foods. And these foods are usually high fructose but low glucose content. So then we get fructose malabsorption, which can lead to more symptoms. And our last one on the list we have is polyols. So polyols are your mannitol and sorbitol. They're your sugar alcohols, and they're found in a lot of fruits and vegetables, like your mushrooms or avocados. And they can also be found in a lot of artificial sweeteners. So that's in things like chewing gum and also sodas and soft drinks. So moving on to food chemical sensitivities, these are separate to FODMAPs, but they also can really cross over with FODMAPs as well. So they're found in things like vegetables, fruits, packaged foods, and cheeses. These can also cause very similar gastrointestinal issues for individuals that are sensitive to these foods. And the main ones are salicylates, glutamates, and amines. So, and also food additives, sorry. So salicylates include foods like your capsicum, coffee, and citrus fruits. Glutamates are things like tomatoes, sauces. It's also found in a lot of Chinese foods. And then you've got your amines, which is chocolate, aged cheeses, meats, and also ripe bananas. So when food chemicals are consumed by the intolerant individual in high amounts, the chemical can irritate your nerve endings in your body. So lots of symptoms that are related to this include skin irritations, which can be things like eczema and hives and rashes. You've got your airway irritations, which is asthma and sinus infections, your nervous system irritations, which is your headaches, your fatigue, aches and pains, and then gastrointestinal issues, which then comes across to IBS symptoms like cramping and bloating, diarrhea, constipation. So this reason, food chemical sensitivities can often be very much confused with IBS symptoms. So it is important to always get those checked out with your GP or your accredited practicing dietitian, just to really make sure you know which one you have, or you might even have both if you're a lucky individual. Because there are some symptoms that do overlap. So that's all from me now. I'm going to move on to Mare from Intoleran, and she's going to give us some evidence-based recommendations for food intolerance and food chemical sensitivity, as well as where you can get access to these products.
Yes, exactly. Lisa, my screen is still frozen at the first slide. So could you try to start the PowerPoint again? So that I can see my
Sorry,
slides.
did everybody else have that issue?
It was frozen, but it's okay now.
Okay, sorry about that. Maybe I'll quickly run through those slides if you don't mind. Just to get everybody a quick idea of what I was talking about. Sorry, I didn't realize it was frozen. That was just my little acronym there. And these are just the foods that I was discussing. Can everybody see that now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I might just leave it like this then, if that makes it a little bit easier. I might see if I can make these slides available for you guys as well, so that you can see anything you missed out on. But yeah, I'll pass it on to Intoleran now.
Yes, let's see if you start the PowerPoint. If do we do it like this, or do we start the?
I think I'll leave it like this just to prevent
That's
it
perfect. Yes, maybe that's better. Everyone can see it. Yeah. Yes, so I would like to tell you first a little bit more about Intoleran, because I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Intoleran or not. So we are a company based in the Netherlands, in a very, very small city in the north of the Netherlands. And we produce and develop products for food intolerances. Because at Intoleran, we know that intestinal problems such as food intolerances, for example, food intolerances caused by FODMAPs, really have a significant impact on the daily life. Because, of course, first of all, the complaints can be very severe, can be very annoying. And second of all, because the diet can be really restricted if you have to avoid one or multiple FODMAPs. So that's why our mission is to enjoy food again. We would like everyone to enjoy food again, even people with food intolerances and people who have to limit out FODMAPs. We would like everyone to enjoy food again. And this mission started with our founder, Remco Hiemstra. He is lactose intolerant himself. And in 2008, he went on holidays to the US, and he saw that there were a lot of products on the market for lactose intolerance. And as he was a scientist, he was like, I can do it myself. And that's in 2008, how our company started. And nearly 14 years later, we have a complete range of products for different food intolerances. We have products for almost all of the FODMAP food intolerances, except for the polyols. We do not have products for the polyols, but we do have products for lactose, for fructose, for fructans and galactans intolerance. And besides that, we also have products for histamine and starch and sucrose intolerance. But I will only go into the FODMAP food intolerances and the products we have for those food intolerances today. Yes, so a little bit more about food intolerances in general. In a food intolerance, there's often a problem in digestion and breakdown of specific food components. And this is because there is a shortage of a specific enzyme, or an enzyme is completely missing. Like Lisa told already, for example, in lactose intolerance, the lactase enzyme is missing. And that's how or why actually a lactose is not broken down. And normally lactose is broken down in the small intestine, and other food components are broken down in the small intestine. But when that doesn't happen due to a shortage of an enzyme, the food components arrive in the colon, in the large intestine. And that's where the large intestine tries to ferment these food components. And that's where the complaints of a food intolerance come from this fermentation process in the large intestine. And worldwide, as many as 45% of the people are intolerant to one or more foods. And today we're going to talk about the FODMAP food intolerances. So in the pie charts, you also see lactose, fructose, fructans, and galactans intolerance. And this 45% of the people that are intolerant, they are not only intolerant for the components you see in the pie chart. It's every intolerance in the world. And the most common food intolerance is lactose intolerance. And the symptoms of lactose intolerance, but also of all the other intolerances, they're often very vague and not as easy to diagnose as a food intolerance. And irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, often involves one or more food intolerances. And you can imagine, if you have multiple food intolerances, well, first of all, the complaints, they can stack up, they can become really heavy, really severe. And second of all, the diet is really restricted. If you are intolerant for example, multiple FODMAPs like fructose, fructans, lactose, you can imagine that there is not much left in the diet which you can eat without getting any complaints. Yes, and the complaints of the food intolerance we see in the next slide. And it's the complaints, the symptoms, they are abdominal pain, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, intestinal cramps, flatulence. And as you can see, these are really general complaints. You wouldn't say if someone has these complaints, oh, that's a food intolerance. It could be any other intestinal disease or intestinal situation. And that's why, for example, the FODMAP diet or any other elimination diet is a really good way to, to diagnose a food intolerance. Yes. And I will show you a little animation video about digestive enzymes, because digestive enzymes are, of course, what is missing in a food intolerance and why the complaints of an intolerance appear. So yes, let's see the video.
Properly.
Oh, I don't hear any
Normally, the
sound
body
with it.
makes the digestive enzymes itself.
Great.
Most of the breakdown and digestion of food takes place in the small intestine. Digestive enzymes help break down nutrients such as lactose, fructose, fructans, galactans, starch, sucrose, and histamine. If there are too few digestive enzymes, this can cause symptoms such as bloating, flatulence, and abdominal pain. This is called a food intolerance. A lack of digestive enzymes can be due to several reasons, such as a problem with enzyme production, intestinal surgery, aging. It could be hereditary, or the cause can also be unknown.
Yes. So that was a little bit more about digestive enzymes, a little animation, which showed, a bit clearer how they work. We can go to the next slide. Perfect. So digestive enzymes are proteins that can break down nutrients from food in our diet, like we saw in the animation video. There are specific enzymes that fit to specific food components, and they can break them down. But in a food intolerance, these enzymes are missing. And that's where enzymes can be used in supplement form. Because if you take the enzymes in a supplement form, you can fill up the missing enzymes that your body lacks of, and you can support your body's own enzyme system. So with filling up the missing enzymes, your body can still digest the food components. So for example, in a lactose intolerance, the lactase enzyme is missing. If you take that in a supplement form, you have enough lactase enzyme in the body to digest all the lactose. And that's how digestive enzymes in a supplement form can avoid complaints of a food intolerance. Yes, so these enzymes, they can really help to relieve the symptoms associated with food intolerances, but also can help in cases of IBS to relieve the symptoms. Then we go to the first FODMAP intolerance, and it's lactose intolerance. And Lisa told already a little bit about lactose intolerance, but in this animation video, it's really explained a little bit more into detail. So yeah, let's watch the video.
Lactose is normally broken down in the small intestine. There, the lactase enzyme splits lactose into glucose and galactose so that it can be absorbed by the intestinal wall. What is happening in lactose intolerance? In lactose intolerance, there is a deficiency of the lactase enzyme. As a result, lactose is not broken down and cannot be absorbed by the intestinal wall. If lactose is not digested in the small intestine, it enters the large intestine, where it cannot be properly digested. This can cause unpleasant intestinal symptoms such as abdominal pain, diarrhoea, bloating, constipation, and flatulence.
Yes. So in this video, lactose intolerance was explained, and we saw that there is a shortage of the lactase enzyme. And we can go to the next slide. Yes. So in a lactose intolerance, the lactase enzyme is missing, and this can cause the complaints of the lactose intolerance. And to avoid these complaints, the most easy option would be to avoid lactose in your diet, because if you avoid lactose, you won't get the complaints of a lactose intolerance, of course. But lactose is mainly found in products like milk, cheese, cookies, cakes, ice cream, milkshakes, a lot of products which you need to avoid, which can be difficult. And especially when you're going to eat in a restaurant or with friends, or when you go on holidays, it can be really difficult to avoid lactose and keep your lactose-free diet. And that's where enzymes like the lactase enzyme can come to the rescue. Supplements with the lactase enzyme can avoid those complaints by filling up the missing enzymes. And at Intoleran, we have a few different products with this lactase enzyme. We have different capsules and tablets which can be used with the meals. We have, for example, lactase tablets. They are breakable tablets, and they are very high dosed with the lactase enzyme. And you can take them with the meal. You take them immediately before the meal or 2 minutes before the meal. And after ingestion, they are 30 to 45 minutes effective. So that means after ingestion, you can eat 30 to 45 minutes lactose without getting the complaints of the lactose intolerance. The only thing is that you want to eat something again after 45 minutes with lactose, you should take another dose of capsules. And besides this, we also have lactase drops. And the lactase drops contain the lactase enzyme in a liquid form, and they can be used to make your own lactose-free products. So for example, if you have normal milk with lactose, you can drop some of these lactase drops inside and your milk will be lactose-free. So it's very easy to make your own lactose-free products, for example, for cooking or for baking. But the lactase drops can also be used for infants, for example, for the infant formula or for breastfeeding, in infants with lactose intolerance. Yes, and the last product we have for lactose intolerance, it is the product once a day. And as the name suggests already, you can take it once a day. And when you take it once a day, you can digest the whole day, all the lactose in your diet. And this is a probiotic product, so it doesn't contain the lactase enzyme, but the probiotics in the product, they produce the lactase enzyme in the small intestine, which means there's the whole day lactase available. Yes, let's go to the next intolerance, Fructan and galactan intolerance, the second most common FODMAP intolerance. And fructans and galactans are oligosaccharides, which means they are chains of multiple carbohydrate molecules attached to each other. And as Lisa already told, they are also called FOS and GOS, fructo-oligosaccharides and galacto-oligosaccharides. And oligosaccharides like fructans and galactans, they are often directly transported to the colon where the fermentation process takes place, because no one has an enzyme to digest fructans or galactans in the small intestine. The only difference between people is that some people really get complaints from this fermentation process in the large intestine, and other people who do not have a fructan and galactan intolerance, they do not experience these complaints. So they do not experience the bloating, the flatulence, or the diarrhea, or other complaints from an intolerance. And that's why also not everyone gets the same amount of complaints, especially in fructan and galactan intolerance. It's really different to the amount of fructans and galactans people can still digest before they have complaints. And also people can react to different products. Some people can only react to products with fructans in it, like onion or garlic, and other people can only react also to products with galactans in it, like beans or certain types of nuts. Yes, you can go to the next slide. Yes, like I explained already a bit, fructans are mainly found in onion, garlic, leeks, cabbages, and wheat products, and galactans can be found in legumes such as beans, lentils, but also in soya and certain types of nuts. And a lot of people, they know that they experience intestinal complaints after eating onions or garlic, or after eating legumes. And these people, they think it's normal to have these complaints because so many people have complaints after eating onion or garlic or beans. But it's really actually the fructans and galactans, and it could be even fructan and galactan intolerance that they have. And yeah, again, the most easy solution would be to remove fructans and galactans from your diet. But again, it's not that easy, especially not if you're going to eat out or with friends or on holidays. But luckily, there is an enzyme that can help to digest fructans and galactans, and that's the enzyme with the difficult name of alpha-galactosidase. And products with the alpha-galactosidase enzyme, like the product we have, Fructose forte, they can aid digestion of fructans and galactans. They can break them down in smaller carbohydrates so that the body can easily absorb them. And the Fructose forte product can be taken with meals that contain fructans and galactans. It can be taken 2 minutes before the meal or with the first bite of the meal. And again, this product is 30 to 45 minutes effective after ingestion. And it's suitable for children from 2 years and older. Yes. Let's go to the next intolerance, the last of the FODMAP intolerances, fructose intolerance. And fructose is a monosaccharide, which means it's just one small carbohydrate molecule. And normally fructose passes through the intestinal wall with the GLUT5 transporter. You can see it in the image, the top image. The GLUT5 transporter is in the intestinal wall. And it helps fructose to be absorbed and gets absorbed in the bloodstream. But in a fructose intolerance, or more specifically, actually a fructose malabsorption, the GLUT5 transporter is defect. You can see this in the second image. It's blocked or it's defect. At least it doesn't work. And if this GLUT5 transporter doesn't work, then fructose cannot be absorbed, and it gets into the large intestine. And in the large intestine, again, this fermentation process starts, which causes the complaint of a food intolerance, in this case, a fructose intolerance. There's one way that fructose can be absorbed even in a fructose malabsorption, and that is to hitchhike with glucose. Because glucose gets absorbed in exactly the same way as fructose, only glucose uses the GLUT2 transporter. And fructose can attach to glucose, and together they can be absorbed by this GLUT2 transporter. The only thing is this only works in a 1-on-1 ratio of glucose and fructose, because if there's more fructose than glucose, there's free fructose, which cannot attach to glucose. And this free fructose, this still will travel to the large intestine where the fermentation process will start, and this free fructose will still cause complaints in fructose intolerance. Yes, and fructose is mainly found in products like fruit, vegetables, but also fruit-related products like fruit juice, dried fruit, jams, but also in honey. And again, the most easy solution would be to avoid fructose from your diet. But if you remove fructose from your diet, it can be hard to get all the vitamins and all the minerals in your diet that you need, because there's so many vitamins and minerals in fruit and vegetables. So if you do not want to follow a fructose-free diet, then there is the enzyme xylose isomerase, which can help you. Because the enzyme xylose isomerase can convert fructose to glucose. And more specifically, it will make sure there is a 1-on-1 ratio of fructose and glucose, which means that fructose can hitchhike with glucose and be absorbed by the intestinal wall. And at Intoleran, we also have a product with this xylose isomerase enzyme, and that's the product Fructase. Looks a bit like fructose, so that's why we called it Fructase, because xylose isomerase would be too difficult of a name for a product. And also these come in a capsule form, and the capsules can be used with the meals or snacks or that contain fructose. And again, they are suitable for children from 2 years and older, and after ingestion, they are 30 to 45 minutes effective. So if you want to eat something again after 45 minutes, you should take a new dose of this Fructase enzyme product of the xylose isomerase enzyme. And then we go to the last slide, and that is irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS in short. And IBS is, of course, not really a food intolerance itself, but it can come with multiple food intolerances, because FODMAPs, they can really be triggering symptoms in IBS. So IBS is a disturbance of the function of the gastrointestinal tract. And in IBS, the intestine makes too many or too few movements, and this disturbs the digestion of food. Especially FODMAPs are really hard to be digested in IBS. And FODMAPs are also often the cause of the symptoms and of the complaints in IBS. And if you are intolerant to multiple FODMAPs when you have IBS, you can imagine that the symptoms can stack up, they can really get severe, but also the diet can be really, really limited. If you are intolerant for all the FODMAPs, there's not a lot left that you can eat, which also provides you all the needed vitamins and minerals that you need. So that's why digestive enzymes can really help in IBS to get less complaints, but more importantly, to get a less restricted diet. So that just becomes easier to eat. And most people, they can follow the FODMAP diet when they are at home, but it's getting difficult if you go to a restaurant or go eat at a friend's place, or if you go on vacation. And that's why the use of digestive enzymes can really help. Because it makes the diet so much less restricted. And at Intoleran, we have the product Quatrace Forte. And as the name suggests, Quatrace, it contains 4 different enzymes. So it contains the enzymes lactose, xylose isomerase, alpha-galactosidase, and invertase. The first 3 I discussed already before. So it helps to digest lactose, fructose, fructans, and galactans. So all the FODMAPs except for the polyols. And it also helps to digest sucrose. And sucrose is also found in different fruits and vegetables, but it's also table sugar. And sucrose is not really a FODMAP, but we see that sucrose can cause the same kind of symptoms in IBS as FODMAPs. So that is why Quatrace Forte helps to digest lactose, fructose, fructans, galactans, and sucrose. Very easy to use in IBS for a less restricted diet. Yes, so that was my part about the different FODMAP food intolerances and about the products with digestive enzymes that you can help relieve symptoms of a food intolerance. So I think for now it is time for some questions. Yes.
I've got a question. So
yes, of course.
I've been using the Quatrace, I think, for about 12, maybe 15 months. And generally speaking, it's been pretty effective. It's sort of covered I'd say about 85 to 90% of the problems, because I have both lactose and fructose. And obviously I had Fructan problems as well, which I didn't know about. But what I sort of find difficult to try and work out are the quantities needed to sort of create the right amount of sort of preventative. So for example, let's say during the day, I might stop working and have a slice of toast with jam on it. Do I need to be taking a tablet at that point, one of these the Quatrace, or is it going to be too small to really be a problem? Or is there no real answer to that? It depends on the individual.
I really understand your question, but it's really difficult because there is not really a golden standard for the amount of capsules or tablets you take with the meal. And this is because everyone's intolerance is different, or everyone's IBS is different. Some people can still digest quite a bit of, for example, lactose before they get complaints, while others get already complaints with the smallest amount of lactose. So that's why it's also, for everyone, it's different, the amount of capsules that help to avoid the complaints. I always advise to start with 3 capsules with the first time you try the meal, or with very big meals, and to try to take less with the same meal the next time, and to see if it still works. And if the complaints still stay away, then 2 capsules is enough, and you can try maybe 1 the next time to see if that works. And if the complaints appear with taking 2 capsules, then 3 is the right dose for you. So you have to play a little bit with it. Like, yeah, it's kind of difficult sometimes, but there is not really a good answer, I think, to your question. Yeah, I hope that helps a bit, my answer.
Yeah, that's sort of what I kind of worked up myself in advance. But yeah, so it's a certain amount of hit and miss. But to be on the safe side, you should sort of probably take a bit more and then try and gauge. For example, the example I gave with having taste with jam.
Yes,
Try
exactly.
one each time, and if that does the job, then obviously that's the quantity.
Yes, it could be, yeah. And it's not a problem to take more capsules than you would need, because the enzymes we use, they're like the body's own enzymes. So normally the body would produce them. In food intolerance, it doesn't. So if you have too much of these enzymes, or specific enzymes are not used, they just leave the body in a natural way. They cannot pass through the small intestine, so they cannot enter the bloodstream, and they cannot cause any damage to the body. So if you take like too many capsules, it's not a problem, because it can't cause any extra complaints or side effects.
Does anybody else have any other questions they'd like to ask?
Yes. I agree with Simon. I'm with him on that. That's exactly like me. But I'd also like to put in there is I use your products quite a lot.
Yeah.
And the Quattrace, and because I've got lactose, fructose, fructans,
Exactly.
all
Yeah,
of that.
it helps to digest multiple FODMAPs.
Yeah. But if I was to eat the same meal for dinner 3 or 4 days in a row, and then still take 3 to 4 tablets before that meal, I would slowly get sicker and more unwell over those 3 or 4 days if I was to eat the identical meal going forward. If it was just a one-off meal, then it'll be fine. But if I eat, say, broccoli and like vegetables and a steak or something like that, and all the vegetables like onions or garlic or broccoli, all of that, and I was to eat that, Monday, Tuesday, then Wednesday I'd start to feel very uncomfortable, even though it's exactly the same meal, the same portions. I'm not sure, should I increase it from 3 to 4, maybe to 5 or 6? I'm not, like, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, I have to say that I didn't hear this before. So I'm not sure how exactly it works with the Quattrace Forte, because this should not be a side effect of this product. But you can definitely try to take some more capsules and see if that works. Because you can't take too much of it. But to be honest, I don't really have an answer for you. I think my colleague who is a bit more into this, she can answer you. So if you would like the answer, then you can send an email, and I will pass it to my colleague.
Well, maybe, I'd like to know, because it.
Yes, I can totally imagine that.
Because sometimes what I'd like to do is, because of my busy schedule, I like to create meals that I can just put in the freezer or the fridge, and then pull out, and it's pretty much the same thing.
Yes. It's easy, of course. I can understand that. But
if I have it more than 3 days in a row, I start to feel uncomfortable in my gut. So I need,
that's very unfortunate.
But I'm thinking, I do realize that I probably should have a varied diet, but sometimes it's just not possible with my work schedule and things like that. So I'd really like to actually be able to, use your product, which it does help. I can say for sure. But
that's good to hear.
But just in a having a, like, the same sort of meal, you know, for more than 3 days in a row, which I like to do like a week's worth of cooking on a, you know, for work, and then just, you know, just not have to think about it. But that can actually cause a problem. I just wanted to bring that up, but you know, it's something that I've noticed as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that's not what you want and what you expect. But I don't think I can give you the answer you're looking for. So if you would like to send an email to info@intoleran.com,
of course,
then I will pass it through to my colleague, and she definitely knows more about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Adam, I might be able to help you a little bit with your question. I can't obviously say exactly because I don't know your full day's diet. Have you ever heard of a thing called FODMAP stacking?
No, I haven't. No.
So basically what happens throughout the day is, let's say you eat something that's acceptable and low FODMAP by serving size. So I think one of the examples at the moment is a low FODMAP serving of strawberries is, I think, 5 strawberries. So you eat your 5 strawberries and that's fine because it's low FODMAP. Say you have another food later on and it's another type of fruit. It's got fructose in it, but you're eating again low FODMAP serve. So you think everything's fine. What can happen by the end of the day is that you have stacked up your fructose or your fructose, whatever it is. So I'm not sure what you're eating throughout the day, but it can be a cause of stacking those things throughout the day where your body just can't cope with it.
I've read something similar online called a FODMAP bucket, which you can fill the FODMAP bucket up and then it just overflows. Yeah.
Sounds
it's very similar. It sounds very similar. So so that's probably may have.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, well, Intolerant does help with digesting those things. However, maybe it's the foods that you're eating earlier in the day, or maybe if you're not having enough of the capsules, some of that meal is staying in your body, so that when you get to your next day and you have the same meal, you still have still stacking on that meal, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing to email through, but maybe thinking about what you're eating through the day as well.
Yeah, so I like in the morning and for lunch, it's either the low FODMAP bread that I buy from the supermarket or a health food store, and like wraps, which is just full of low FODMAP salads and this and that. So that's like breakfast, lunch, you know, sort of thing. And then like I have a really big meal with meat and veggies and thing at dinner. So maybe there's something there. I'll have a look into it.
It could definitely be because, you know, you are having like those low FODMAP foods during the day. For example, the fructans in the bread, they still exist. They're just in low enough quantities that they can be low FODMAP and they are easily digested.
Because it does still have wheat.
And if you're then having onion and garlic for dinner, even though you're having the enzymes with that, it could be just that you have stacked up during the day. So maybe that's something to look into. Honestly, it's hard. Again, as Mario said, it depends on the
of course.
Everyone's different, so you've got to kind of trial and error and figure out what's best for you. It sucks.
It's not a one size fits all, is it?
No, definitely not.
No.
I have it myself, so I completely understand where you're coming from. There's days where I'm great and then other days where I'm not great, and I'm like, I ate the same thing. What's happening?
Exactly right. That's what I'm saying, is like I just ate the same thing as I did yesterday, and I'm just feeling
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, we'll definitely have I've just got our email here for FodShopper. You're welcome to email that through or straight to Intoleran, but if you do email us, I'll just forward it on to Intoleran so they can maybe give you
and info at Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, sorry. For Fiona, would you like to ask?
Sure. Hi. Just a bit of help for Adam too. So I've only just gotten the trial pack of, like, I don't know if you can see it, but the what do you guys call it? The fructose. So I've been a little bit reluctant to try it because I really wanted to try it when I go out for a meal, because I obviously know when I cook what's in the meal, and I'm basically okay at home, but it's uncomfortable feeling of ordering something from a menu and then having to quiz the wait staff to hope that there's not. My trigger is 100% onion, but it's not garlic. I'm like lucky in that case. But just for Adam, I do know that even if I cook a meal myself and I'm trying to eliminate onion or whatever the trigger food for me is, it could be eggplant, which is odd. But if I have that multiple days in a row without taking anything, I will have the same experience that you have. So it might just be like I get to the level where I cannot take any more of whatever the trigger food is. So that might be what you're finding. But given that I haven't tried this, would you suggest I wouldn't try this at a restaurant for the first time, given that I don't know if I should take 3 capsules or 4 capsules in the first attempt?
I always recommend to try it first at home. So if you get any complaints, at least you're at home, you're in a environment that you know, you're in a comfortable environment.
Sure.
But yeah, some people also just try it for the first time on a restaurant or on vacation. It's just whatever you prefer, I think, whatever you feel most comfortable with.
And given that I know kind of most of my triggers, would you suggest 3, like you were saying to the other gentleman, like try 3? Would that be kind of like the normal amount to start with?
Yeah, I would recommend to start with 3 capsules. Doesn't really matter what you take, if it's small or bigger, just to make sure that your body has enough enzyme to digest the FODMAPs. Okay. Yeah, just to make sure that you have enough enzyme and you avoid the complaints.
All right, I'm crossing all my fingers because I've had this for 20 years, and
I really hope it works and you'll be happier when you eat something.
Took about 15 years to diagnose, so I was quite relieved to getting diagnosis. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, good luck.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so we might have time for one more question, but just while you guys are thinking,
I see a question in the chat.
Yes, it was about the difference between FODMAPs and food chemical sensitivities. Mara, would you like to maybe let us know what the answer to that one is?
I don't know if I know the answer to that. I think you were talking about chemical food components.
Yeah, so I guess how I would explain it is that they're different things. So food sensitivities, I will bring up my slide now that I can show them. So sorry about that, everyone. I'm quite embarrassed that that didn't work for you guys. But yeah, basically this is a little slide here that I made to explain the difference between FODMAPs and food chemicals. So they're your salicylates, your glutamates, and your amines. In terms of differences, one's just a chemical and one's just something found in the foods. I'm not really sure how to explain it differently to that. Some of the foods do overlap, but then there's also, things like Chinese food. I think that's because of the MSG, from what I understand. And then that's not really a FODMAP, whereas that is a glutamate. So in terms of food chemical sensitivity, the best way to kind of diagnose that would be to see a dietitian or your doctor, just because you can't really diagnose that on your own. You can definitely kind of get a sense for your own body. When I eat Chinese food, I get a reaction, but the big difference between them is that the food chemical sensitivity does affect the nerve endings in your body, whereas FODMAPs won't. FODMAPs are purely just gastrointestinal tract. So that's your stomach and your bloating, your diarrhea, constipation, whereas, your food chemical sensitivities, that can be things such as your airways, having asthma, or you might get really bad headaches. I saw a guy come into FodShop the other day, and he was saying, when I eat FODMAPs, when I eat onion and garlic, I'm out for days. He gets really dizzy, he has migraines, he has to, lie down in bed for days. So I was straight away like, oh, that sounds a bit strange. That's not really a FODMAP symptom. So if you are experiencing things like that, it could definitely be a food chemical sensitivity and something you should definitely check with your doctor about. I hope that answered your question a bit better. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. So if anyone does have any more questions, please feel free to email us and we can get in contact with you, or I can also forward them to Intoleran if your question's more related to their products. And thank you so much for coming today. The recording will be made available. I have put it in the chat, but I might send out another email or so just to let everybody know. And I'll also try and make those slides available too, since we did miss out on the ones at the start. But thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your time, and have a good day.
Yes. Have
Thank
a
you,
great night,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.